Major development on electoral reform. The Senate has reversed its earlier position and amended the Electoral Act to permit the electronic transmission of election results, a key demand of civil society and voters, while still retaining a manual backup option in cases of technical failure. This decision came during an emergency plenary session where senators rescinded last week's rejection of e-transmission provisions and agreed that electronic systems should serve as the primary method of uploading results. But in a compromise form, EC8A, the traditional paper return will remain valid if internet connectivity fails.
The reversal follows widespread public backlash, including protests outside the National Assembly by civil society groups, political parties and activists, calling for greater transparency and credibility in Nigeria's electoral process. The Senate also set up a 12-member conference committee to harmonise its version of the bill with the House of Representatives with the aim of sending a final version to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for assent as early as this month. Joining us now on Breakfast Central to break down what this change means for election transparency, voter confidence and 2027 general elections is Chairman of Abuja School of Politics, Dr. Sam Amadi, and former member of YAGA and director of Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, Ezenwa Onwago. One welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us this morning for this important discussion. I'd like to start with Mr. Onwago. What exactly did the Senate approve yesterday, and how does this new version of the Electoral Act differ from the earlier one that restricted electronic results transmission? Have we made progress?
Well, thank you for having me and good morning. I think we shifted the needle just a bit, but if you'd followed the conversations that I've had on this matter, I've said that what we have is not far-reaching in terms of if what we are talking about is to deepen election integrity. I've predicated my conversations purely around the fact that whether you compulsorily, mandatorily, statutorily upload into the IREV, you simply have uploaded still pictures, and perhaps we are helping litigants. What these have done is, at the end of the day, since the Supreme Court had said that the e-transmission and such other things were not in the law, now if it is passed, because the treadmill of lawmaking is still going on, it is not concluded yet, there is still the concurrence, there is still assent and the rest of them. If eventually it passes, we will have satisfied that demand of the judiciary that it should be in the law. But in terms of the integrity sentinel, except you have a system that is able to compute, analyze, and sift, then we have reinforced, in my view, simply the demands of people who really do want. For the election environment, I've argued that if results are compromised through community collusion, through transactional party agents, and through corrupt INEC officials, even when you upload those results, you have simply uploaded into a viewing portal something that does not deepen in the real sense, election integrity. But it's in Nigeria, tokenism is it for us. When we are fighting, whatever little thing that is thrown at us, we take it and then we're excited. But the politicians understand, even though sometimes they pretend they don't understand, they know that the excitement that follows the fact that, you now have e-transmission at law does not in any way take away the shenanigans that still go on at the PU level, which is where elections are really corrupted, in my view.
All right, thank you, Mr. Onwago. Let me go to Dr. Sa. First off, what do you make of this? Is this a victory for Nigerians, for democracy? And do you think that this would help curb
any form of trying to, in quotes, steal the people's mandate or votes with this latest approval?
Chairman is Director, Abuja School of Social and Political, but that's by the way. Again, the question is, oftentimes we also forget that the basic work of government and regulators is to assume the responsibility to solve problems. So first, I would say straight away that this is not an improvement. It's actually, in my view, worse than what was there before. So the first version was better, that at least what it says is INEC determines. And then if INEC does not, the Supreme Court, the court says, oh, well, INEC is not written in the law. So first, let's say what's the problem? What's the problem is that INEC has made improvements in their systems over the years that has restricted or made it more difficult to corrupt electoral process or, rig the election system, the vote system. Oftentimes, these systems are not foolproof, but they have worked, like I said. But then we discover that you have most of the now fraud happens at the collation centers, where either through violence, either through state capture, maybe fictitious results are coming. I mean, graphic case will be in 2023, when we are seeing results mutilated. One would expect that those results would be easily discounted because essentially they call into doubt their authenticity. But those results were received. Now, it's INEC that developed IRF. It's INEC that made the regulation, which they started the guidelines. And the court says, well, INEC themselves still went to court and say, well, we made those regulations. We did the governorship, we did the pursuit with IRF, it went well. At the 2023 election, we uploaded House of Reps and Senate, but including the presidency. By the way, we are free not to use it. And the court said, yes, you are free because it's not written in the Act, which of course I've argued is wrong law. I've taught constitutional law, administrative law, and I can say with some authority that anybody who says that a guideline made or regulation made portion to power in the Constitution, in the Act, is not binding, doesn't understand law. But that's it. The Nigerian court said, yeah, you're right, you can. So that's the point here. So people are saying, if we want electronic transmission, which is not a cure-all, like SSA, but which is significant, that the Electoral Act gives INEC a 1-week window to review results. So if you rush in results from IMO, which everybody says was not the right result, INEC has adjudicatory power to see it and say, okay, this is IRF, which we loaded at the right time, signed by the people, and it went in. That's the result we had from the polling unit. SMA is right to say maybe there was collusion, community people came together and said everybody should vote for it. Yes, that's a problem, but that's not the same problem as accurate counting. What they counted was accurate and uploaded. So INEC used it to now review that result. So this is a very important measure for electoral integrity. And so what needed to be done is to explicitly say that INEC should use that, since it is a court that caused a problem with INEC officials who are trying to hide their fraud in 2023. They go to court and say, by the way, and lawyers will advise them, this is not in the Act. Therefore, say we are at liberty. Because yes, you said to, that's what we want. Now, what they have done now is to institutionalize default. So you write in the law to say that INEC should electronically transmit results. But whenever there's a hitch, it can decide not to do so, and the result is okay. Okay, so the default mode for a corrupt INEC, for example, I'm not saying they are corrupt, assuming that the INEC leadership decides to swing to anybody, whether it's to the opposition or to the presidency or the ruling party. All they now do is to declare a hitch. What's a hitch? The last one hitch was that, oh, maybe server was down, Amazon was saying it didn't work, oh, password didn't work, oh, there was no, anything becomes, so I've not seen a law where you provide for default, you legislate an obligation, and you provide for default in very broad terms. So you are saying, if you told me, it's just like saying you should have your driving license every time you're on the road. And then the law says, but if you don't have it because you forgot, because of any reason, they should not arrest you. That has nullified the obligation to carry a driving license. Because all I need to do is to leave it or not have it and tell you, oh, as I was rushing, that's a default. I forgot it. My daughter was crying. I was confused. Because the law has legitimized that excuse. So this is a dangerous, in their desperation and in their subtlety and deception, they have now crafted something that could even enable, even if INEC leadership allows the system to work, a police officer down the road could decide not to upload and then write fictitious one or cancel things and send to the collection center and say, why did you do that? Well, there was a hitch. I mistimed the password. That's the point here. So what is at play clear is not having electronic transmission helps fraud in three ways. One, it allows what happened in 2023. People can, after results have been signed in and agents taking their result, they mutilate and cancel and cancel. And the collection center is official collection. They collect it, INEC declares. And INEC has no backup to second guess that decision. That's number one. Number two, those of us who are also stakeholders in this election have no way of knowing what's the real result. So what Nigerians want is that when we vote, even if those voters were paid to vote, I have said that before, there are levels of fraud in the electoral system that we can't solve now. People who collect money to vote is not good. But they voted. That's their own expression of voting. If the whole community was seduced by preaching to say vote for Mr. A, which is not democratic, and they all go there, but they voted. We want to make sure that after the votes are counted, the result is not something somebody overthrew at the collection center or at any point. And the safest guide to that is this electronic transmission, because if INEC is not corrupt thoroughly, it has the database to sit back and say these votes cannot be correct because what was sent real time meaning after completion of voting and counting and signing, is in our custody and is different from what you are sending to me. I can't accept. That's a simple thing. That's why I start with integrity. Then we move to the high level of ensuring that voters themselves, all of them, vote their conscience, ensure that communities don't intervene, ensure that when somebody goes to that polling unit, nobody is there to whisper ADC or APC or ACN. That is a second level of protecting integrity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amadi, for explaining clearly your thoughts about this. I'll now go back to Mr. Nwagu. In his explanation, Mr. Amadi was sharing about how he's never seen a case where the law is already making provision for defaults before the law has even kicked into effect, which is some of the, the pushback that we've seen from this, with people saying you're already assuming that it's, there's going to be issues. Now, there's also been reports citing that there are 9 areas in which network could, there could be network issues, there could be problems with real-time transmission. What alternatives would you have suggested, that the lawmakers take into consideration whilst passing this law? And do you think that as is, the law as is, it's enough, for those who have been protesting, those who have been, going to the National Assembly to protest? Do you think that they will be satisfied with the law as is?
Well, the first thing I will say is that protest is a failure of, is a response to the institutional weaknesses in the legislature. If the legislators and the senators have functional constituency offices, have functional means of harvesting citizens' input into the treadmill of lawmaking, you probably would not see protests. If they themselves had electronic voting machines working, we will be able to know where those who represent us vote on issues. That's an aside. So I can't guarantee what satisfies the protest. In a democracy, you don't get everything you want. When you push, because there's also limit to advocacy. When you push, there are concessions made. So it's not my way or the highway. There is going to be. So at some point, when there's a shift, and like I said, most of the shifts are always very tokenistic. Having said that, the current situation, when people say INEC should go to the IREV, there has to be a dispute. If nobody is disputing a result, INEC will not say because Dr. Sam Amadi is saying that there is fraud, then they have to go there. It has to be the parties. And the enormity, the consequence, the impact of collusion is that it stalls the ability to interrogate. Because once people have agreed, people don't just, the law is there, the extant law is clear that if the presiding officer refuses to upload results from the polling unit, he is liable to a sanction. So, but he doesn't get that sanction except there is a complainant, except there is evidence-based complaint. And I've predicated my conversations around the dereliction of responsibility by the political parties in having truly organic party agents. What do I mean by that? Party agents that report to somebody, that report to another supervisor. So you harvest the Form EC8A, your supervisor takes it and gives it over to the person who is going to collation center. And today, life has been made easy that you can have different kinds of cameras. So even if you are prevented from coming into the collation center, if you are manhandled, you already have the Form EC8 notarized. If you notarize it, you keep it. So if there is no complaint, the IREV is useless. If nobody is calling attention, the IREV will only satisfy the interest of researchers, the interest of the media, and people who, in my view, are not the main people in the electoral. So politicians, political parties, and their candidates have a responsibility to ensure that what the law says, because we dismiss we discountenance the place of the fraud that takes place in the polling units and the irresponsibility of the party agents and community leaders who collude to produce compromised results from the polling units and upload it into a system that does not do anything about the results that is given to it. That is simply a repository of votes. So that for me is critical in determining the integrity of the election. You can pinch on the regulator. The regulator, if he's compromised, and the people who should complain are also compromised. I have seen people who come to collation center empty-handed, complaining about a manipulated result. But the manipulated result was actually signed up by their, agents in the polling unit. And so it's clear. Then that is important. So if we say, let us completely take away discretion. The way I hear it, the conversation, you can't legislate, you can't legislate. Where you are now, when they say you lack initiative, what are they saying? They are saying simply that you are not able, if the law, because we are dealing with a sociological situation. You are dealing with a relatively backward system outside of an election. Your election can be better than your infrastructure. If you argue that, the internet penetration debate is not important, what you should do is to quickly get Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy in one room, the service providers and the Nigerian Communication Commission, NCC, and the INEC and other relevant stakeholders in one room and say, truly, we have 2G, we have 4G, we have this, and in some places we don't even have at all. Can we transparently put out the places where this exists and where it doesn't exist, and say where we can do this quickly? Election in Nigeria is not a normal election. Inside Nigerian election, ethnicity is inside, religion, everything primordial is thrown into that casting of vote that you are seeing. So if you delay by 3 hours in uploading that result, it can cause mayhem. It can cause mayhem. So we have to be nuanced. We have to be nuanced in the way we want to take away discretion and say, oh, if there are sanctions for non-use of it, the law is clear. If you derelict, if you don't do this, there are many ifs in Nigerian election, but those ifs will be sanctioned if the relevant authorities. But the gap for me is that you have a lazy and indolent political party, membership. In fact, where you don't even have membership, because somebody can be party agent for A today, and then later in the afternoon he's wearing the this thing of party B. So transactional nature of our party agency, the community collusion, makes nonsense of the laws that are put there. If people agree to compromise election in their polling units and even in their, and there is nobody complaining, the complaint will be left for us in News Central, will be left for all of us to be shouting. But the real people who participated in the election have sold their parties, have compromised the process, and stand aloof and give the impression that they were not the ones who compromised those processes. And that's what we have seen. So we need to go much more beyond that. Let us have e-transmission where it is possible, e-collation where it is possible, and ensure that it is nuanced in a way that does not hamstring the hand of the regulator so completely that even those who want to do good can no longer do good.
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring back Dr. Sam Amadi into the conversation. Now, Dr. Sam Amadi, the version we saw yesterday had real-time omitted from it. And what does that do to what we now have? That will be harmonized and sent to the presidency, to the president for assent. How much of a difference does it make in the overall scheme of things?
I think for meaning, it doesn't make much the difference. I mean, real time will suggest what is real time. So people have argued that if you say real time, does it mean real time like electronic voting? You vote now, it enters. So I don't think real time really matters. What the people mean by real time is that after you have signed, you upload. So it may not have much part. But let's get back again. INEC's official documentation as of 2022 says they have 93% capability to electronically transmit. In 2022 election, there was no single incident INEC said of not uploading a House of Reps or Senate election across Nigeria. See, the problem with Nigeria is that we're not evidence-based. Where we start from is, there are many things that we do today. If you are going to do law school anywhere in the country, they will ask you to upload to the portal. Many applications, you upload them. POS will run. POS is like the same intelligence. It records in the bank's balance sheet. With POS, the bank sees that you have withdrawn your money. The transfer goes and money is credited. Nigeria has actually, interestingly, one of the fastest money transfers in the world, which is clear what we call late commerce advantage. Late commerce into the technological frontiers have faster leap forward. When I was in the US, I wasn't having, when I came to Nigeria, I was having better ATM services than America. In fact, we had more people using ATM here than I was in the US then. So the point is this: we shouldn't fetishize technology. And the point also is, and I agree with Ezenwa that, look, the parties themselves are, lazy, sometimes unfocused. And I made that case just two nights ago to a group of party leaders that the 2023 error was actually mostly their own, because they never engage INEC strategically. If you go to, take for example, other countries in the world, electoral bodies are like quasi judicial, they're like a court. Parties filing, written by their lawyers on every issue, and they debate it and take a position. So we need more rigor, and I agree with him. But what's also very important is that we can't look at all the sociological issues together. We cannot, for example, in the US today, race, religion plays key role. It doesn't matter. Latinos have a vote where they block. Afro-Americans are going to block. So what I'm saying is that let's restrict everything for these shadowers and focus on few things. For me, it's clear what I want to see. I want to see an election, no matter how people decide to vote. If the votes count equally, and that's the theory of political equality behind democracy. And what that means, therefore, that I want to focus on ascertaining what was actually voted. And that's why this IREV is not just a custodian, by the way. This IREV is INEC's own effort to create a process to deal with perceived failure. I give you an example. In 2017 or 2019 election, Imo State, Senate race, the candidate on gunpoint forced a returning officer to declare results for him. And after the returning officer says, this result is fake, he told INEC, I was forced to declare it under gunpoint. And there was a debate inside INEC officials, some of them who are corrupt, wrote, we can't do anything, declare, let them go to court. Go to court. They know that the dynamics of litigation frustrates the man who was declared loser. But some of them said, no, you cannot think that a valid election, a valid vote is that one that somebody under gunpoint, and the officer says, I didn't sign this. At the end of the day, they declared the guy who is gone to obtain results. So what we are saying is not that, look at US, look at Kenya, look at Ghana. India is bigger than us, more complex, in fact, has more rural areas. But elections closed down, electronically transmitted. People, in fact, even journalists have a right. We should be seen. People should be going to. Have you seen the collation center of INEC and the ones of other countries? They all is automated. INEC on the sit there, somebody will come flying from Sokoto, tell us that he's delayed for 4 hours, and when he come there, he reads something he likes, and they say accepted, boom, and at midnight. That is a sham. That's nonsensical. You have to be like an exchange. You see people will see on the dashboard, see the results coming. That's what it is. The footprint closes at A, result is in. We note it. Elections, and I agree with him, the major stakeholders are the party, but everybody's a stakeholder because democracy votes. The people who voted. See, it's not a person, and I've argued, even in going to court, that the idea of local standards should expand. The people who vote are arguably more important in democracy than the people who run elections. Because they're the people whose mandate to govern. That's the people who say, democracy is built on the idea that nobody should govern me except I choose him. So the first person who is a stakeholder is the voter. And the voter wants to make sure that we actually voted for A, not B. So there's no reason why people who voted cannot go home and put on the television and see you people report that in their polling unit, the same result they voted is X, and not wait after the ritual or some people gathering and then they'll use police like in Edo. Even the governor was ordered out of the collation center with his team. So it becomes a case of either the governor has a stronger rigging, military violence, or the ruling or the federal party has more, and they slug it out. End of the day, people push it. That's not. Technology is still more reliable than human beings because we can see when it goes up that this is there. And that's a check. That's why should APC in 2022, APC fought hard. All the APC senators did not vote for electronic. Buhari had to save us back. They voted no. Why? There must be a reason why people in opposition fight for electronic voting. People in the ruling party, whether it's PDP or APC, fight against it. Why? Because they know that it has a liberating feature. It can constrain their rigging strategy at a scale. And that's what I want to focus on. So, yeah, there are many issues, but we have to have clarity that let's address the one. But I look at Beavers today. Beavers has brought certainty. Today, nobody argues whether you go and say 5 million voted for you when the people who are accredited 2 million. The courts now say void because the law say if by any means the number of total votes is more than number of accredited voters, void it. No dispute as to whether Beavers has malfunctioned. Beavers has never. Why? Because when the law mandates it, there are discussions for things in the Act, but there should be discussions for some basic things that you can process. There's no discussion, for example, on who is qualified for election. It's there. It's not for you to go back and say, this man has WAEC, but he didn't have WAEC, but he speaks English very well. No, the law says some things have to open and close. The law says, this is it, you do it. Discretion comes in judgment. You have to look at those petitions, sit in the panel, review them, look at the IRF, and make a call. But we want to see some programmable behavior in pulling. When it closes by this time, do this, you do it. When it's not done, it's voided. It happens everywhere. Some elections, some results are voided. In fact, the Electronic Act says INEC can void those results if it has evidence of fraud. And what I'm saying is that the IRF helps you make that decision. It is true that Nigerians, party agents are corrupt. But look, we don't solve corruption through some kind of osmosis. We solve corruption when the incentive for corrupt behavior is low, when the possibility of success, and I've argued this, that if you cancel one election, one federal, if I was an INEC official, I would be prone to cancel a national election. When people spend billions on rig election, and I cancel it, then you internalize a control mechanism. So somebody knows, will I go and buy INEC chairman or INEC official or police officer or IG with billions, and then somebody will void it or the court will void it? That's the problem. We have this big corruption. If the courts have cancelled a major presidential election because of fraud, everybody will internalize due process and caution because they know that you're likely going to lose. So that's the point. I want to see much more consequence and control of this corrupt behavior.
That sounds pretty much like maybe a roadmap towards where Nigerians will be looking forward to work on. I really wish we could continue this conversation, but it seems very much interesting. Unfortunately, our time is up. Please do well to avail us more of your time when we come calling, because we know it doesn't stop here. Dr. Sam Amadi, I also watched one of your videos where you had mentioned and quelled the fear the Nigerians have concerning beavers, that it will go off and so on. And you explained clearly about it not being dependable on power and so on and so forth. Maybe when next we have you, we'll take a look at that. We'll also look at the opportunities that Nigeria can tap into the new law. We want to believe everything is not all negative. There are positives to it. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.